Thank you very much. It's really great to be here. Thank you, Techonomy and Worth, for putting on a great conference. How about a round of applause for Techonomy? Awesome job. Climate mitigation is a $1 trillion opportunity. Of course, it's an incredible challenge, but it's also a huge, huge opportunity. The reason it's such a big opportunity is we're witnessing the biggest revolution ever. Now, I didn't live through the Industrial Revolution, but I benefited from it. But I lived through the PC revolution, the mobile revolution, the internet revolution. This is way bigger than that. The reason it's so much bigger is we're remaking the entire energy industry. It's the biggest industry on Earth. This is a graph of 750 years of GDP per capita. Notice what happens right when we learned how to burn things. It takes off like crazy. The population takes off like crazy, as well as the GDP per capita. That's because energy accounts for all of our comfort and convenience, our productivity, our safety, and dramatic GDP growth. It is so important to our civilization and to our society. It accounts for 10% of the entire $100 trillion global GDP. So energy is $10 trillion every single year. And that's the industry that we're remaking to be renewable. That's why it's such a huge opportunity. People are not willing to pay more. Energy is one thing that people do not want to pay more for. Even a penny matters because energy is so fundamental to almost everything we do. It's in our materials, it's in our transportation, it's in all of our livelihood. So renewable energy must be cheaper. In fact, from these pictures here, you can see what happens when energy prices go up. People protest, people riot. It really, really matters to people's livelihood what the price of energy is. So we have two secret weapons to win with renewable energy: the learning curve, or Wright's Law, and the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm going to explain how those two work together and how important it is that we take advantage of both of those things. So first, the learning curve. All of you know that the price of wind and the price of solar have gone down dramatically over the last few decades. Wind has had a 22 times price decline. Solar has had a 200 times price decline. But why has that happened? Well, many people know about Moore's Law. Moore's Law is the prediction that Gordon Moore made that the number of transistors would double every 2 years on a microprocessor. Not as many people know about Wright's Law. Wright's Law was invented by Theodore Wright in 1936, and it was more about cost, not about transistors. It said that every time you double the cumulative volume of something, the price goes down. Not double the volume, but double the cumulative volume. And especially if something is modular and you can make it over and over again, you'll have even more learning curve. So the more modular something is, the faster it will go down in price because you learn in that repetition. And take a look at how that shows up here. Offshore wind has gone down 10%, negative 10%. So it's a 10% learning curve for every cumulative doubling of volume. Onshore wind, which is even more modular, has gone down 23%. 23% cost reduction every time you double cumulative volume. Solar PV has gone down negative 36%. 36% reduction every time you double cumulative volume. In fact, it's gone down another 40% in just the last year. So as we make more of these things, we really drive down the price. And of course, that's what matters. I told you how that matters so much for energy. The cost really, really is fundamental. So this learning curve is something we need to drive down on all of our climate mitigation efforts to really be competitive with the old method of burning things. 2018 was a tipping point in all of human history. 2018 was the time when we worked on the learning curve enough of solar and wind that it was 2 cents and 3 cents a kilowatt hour, beating the best combined cycle natural gas plant of 5 cents or a coal plant of 6 cents a kilowatt hour. So for the first time in all of history, in 2018, we were now making electrons from sun and wind cheaper than any other way ever. Now, of course, we still have challenges with storage and other things and distribution to get those electrons cost effectively to end users all around the clock. But this was really a big turning point. And in fact, at the last Techonomy Climate earlier this year, Bill McKibben had this great quote, which really, really astonished me, which put this all together, which I'm repeating here, which is, can you believe we reduced the price of PV panels so much that now the cheapest way to make electricity is to point a piece of glass at the sun? Like, that is the way you can make the cheapest electricity in all of human history, is take that piece of glass, just angle it, point it at the sun, and you get those electrons out. And in fact, I looked at this too. You can buy a PV panel for $109 for less than the price of a window of the same size at Home Depot. 4 times less, in fact. So a PV panel, which makes electricity, is cheaper than a window, which just lets the light straight through. And that's, again, because of this learning curve, because of mass production, because of driving down the cost, because of improving the material usage. Every little detail of improving it has gotten that cost down, where now it's the cheapest way to make electricity. So now how do we take advantage of that? I've been making companies in climate tech for the last 20 years. These are 20 companies that I've started over the last 20 years. It's really challenging. It's been really challenging up until last year. Last year was a turning point. When this Inflation Reduction Act was passed, it was a huge, huge change, and I'll tell you why. All of these companies that we started were always trying to compete with something that had 100 years of learning curve already. Fossil fuels had 100 years of learning curve price reduction on their production. So how do you compete with something where only thing that matters is price? Now, in other industries, you can compete on other dimensions. Like say you're coming out with a new car or a new watch or an iPhone. You can compete on fashion or features or style. You can compete on other dimensions while your price is high as you work and drive your price down. Sort of the way Tesla has done with their cars, driving the price down and down as they go, but people are willing to pay the higher price, the premium, for other features and functionality. But for electrons, people aren't willing to pay a premium for them. So how do you compete when you have to work your way down the learning curve? That's where the Inflation Reduction Act comes in. All of a sudden, there's new funding which allows you to get to scale, to be able to compete without the subsidy. Now that happened with PV panels. Germany and other countries had great subsidies on PV panels, which helped production scale all over the world, particularly in China, but everywhere, that led to the price reducing. But now with the Inflation Reduction Act, we have this opportunity to take advantage of the learning curve and have other funding that helps drive down so these things are sustainable without any continuing subsidy. And that's really, really a breakthrough. It's $379 billion. It's being devoted across many, many different domains. And I feel that number one thing companies need to do in this new era is really learn that thing very, very well. So the Inflation Reduction Act has so many different aspects to it. It's carrots over sticks. It's money being devoted to helping companies drive down the price with new innovations. And that will allow us to be competitive without any need for the Inflation Reduction Act beyond that. Now, the Inflation Reduction Act is $379 billion over the next 10 years. I suspect that the money that's going to be matched brings it to almost to $3.79 trillion. And the reason why I think it's 10 times higher than the amount that's said is that some of these subsidies aren't capped, but other countries are already starting to match these. Europe wants to match these. Europe is jealous of the fact that we have this great Inflation Reduction Act here right now, and other places will match this. In addition, the Inflation Reduction Act gives 30% matching funds or 10% matching funds or other. But the project money that's going to go into these projects dwarfs the amount that the government is providing. So there'll be much, much more money being devoted to it. And all this is being developed in projects that are happening across the United States, in red states and in blue states. So it's happening everywhere. It's creating jobs everywhere, and it's really being deployed quickly. Really, really exciting that this happened. It's really a breakthrough for the world and a really great breakthrough for our country. So over the last few years, I'll tell you two examples of companies of ours that now take advantage of this. When we started these companies, the Inflation Reduction Act didn't exist. But now that it exists, these companies can take advantage of it to help drive down the cost to not need it anymore. So one of them is carbon capture. Carbon capture is a very important thing in general, not just this company. In general, we need to reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere any way we can. But the Inflation Reduction Act now provides an additional $185 per ton for every ton of CO2 you remove from the atmosphere and permanently store underground. So that's a fantastic incentive to allow us to make those iterations, work the way down Wright's Law, work the way down the learning curve to get the price low enough to not need that sustenance any longer. Another company of ours, Energy Vault. This is an Energy Vault energy storage building. Of course, as you know, solar and wind are fantastic, lowest priced electrons in the world, but they only come when the sun is shining, the wind is blowing. We need to store them. We need every type of chemical battery energy storage. We need every type of other storage to hold on to those electrons to when the sun goes down or to when the demand is the highest. So this company, Energy Vault, is doing gravity storage. This building right here is a 100 meter by 100 meter by 140 meter building. This is being built right outside of Shanghai, another one being built in Texas right now. This stores 100 megawatt hours of energy by lifting weights from the bottom 8 floors of the building up to the top 8 floors of the building when the sun is shining, and lowering those weights back down to the bottom floors to get the energy back when you need it later after the sun goes down. It's really, really cost effective. It lasts for 50 years. It has no degradation. But most importantly, we need to drive down the price. We're now taking advantage of the $45 per kilowatt hour manufacturing tax credit that the Inflation Reduction Act has to help us build more and more of these, get that modularity so we can keep on reducing the cost. When I was born, there was only 315 million parts per million in the atmosphere. Today there's 415. We really need to stop the increase and also go backwards. If we can stop the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere and also remove CO2 in the atmosphere, we can give our children and grandchildren the same world that we inherited, the world I inherited, the world all of us here inherited. That's really my mission. I really want to cause more entrepreneurship and more efforts to make that happen. You heard earlier that Dan said we need 1,000 shots on goal. I actually think we need 1 million shots on goal. 1 million shots on goal will really give us a chance. This is 1 million different entrepreneurs around the world, all taking their own effort, their own angle on competing with fossil fuels, competing with the burning of things to help us reduce the CO2 emissions. I feel that with 1 million shots on goal, we really can do it. And now is the best time. Why is it the best time? There's finally money available. You heard this morning from venture capitalists who want to invest. The IRA is astonishing. The demand is off the charts everywhere. The whole world is reachable. If you come up with an idea now, everyone on the planet can benefit from it. And almost every single part of the energy industry is disruptible with new technology, and the world finally cares. I would love to find ways to partner with any of you to make this happen in a bigger and bigger way. Thank you very much for being a great audience. I really appreciate it. Thank you.